Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us here at Ketos for our first webinar event. Today, we're excited to talk to you about some SSH breaches that are really going to keep you up at night. My name's Danielle Patterson. I'm a recent joiner to the Ketos family. I joined the company in February, and I'm heading up business development. My background is in technology sales. I've been there for about a decade, and I'm so excited to be part of the ketos movement and kind of get into the security space because it's at the top of everybody's mind, right? I'm going to hand it over to Egal to introduce himself now.
Hey, I'm Yigal Fleckman, co-founder and CEO of Ketos. I've been in the security world for a while now. I started my career at Microsoft creating identity and PKI solutions for all of Microsoft customers. And after a while, I decided to leave and co-found Ketos, where we make security tools easy to use, encouraging people to use the secure tools instead of kind of doing it their own way, maybe using a password or something. And our whole goal is to eliminate passwords altogether. And even we're a little ambitious here, even some SSH keys. So I'm going to pass it to Danielle. And like, Danielle, tell us your favorite / scariest hack that starts with an SSH key.
All right. Happy to do that, Egal. So I know the LinkedIn hack back in 2012 is not like the newest or most current SSH hack, but it is still so impactful and still relevant to talk about. So back in June of 2012, LinkedIn realized that about 6.5 million credentials of their user base had been stolen. And initially they thought, okay, this is 6.5 million. It's still a big deal. They notified all their users, locked down those accounts, and forced them to create new passwords. Well, fast forward 4 more years, they find another 100 million LinkedIn credentials that had been leaked. And these are the creme de la creme of LinkedIn users. So we're talking about high top level executives from Fortune 500s. We're talking about the President of the United States. And so that was pretty juicy too. They kept the status quo, just make sure to lock down all the accounts, make people reset their passwords on that platform. But then we have 3 totally unrelated hackers in September of 2020 that decided to just use some of this data that was leaked from the LinkedIn hack. They actually used Trump's password from LinkedIn that was leaked back in 2012 to hack his current LinkedIn account. Or I'm sorry, his current Twitter account. And we all know how much Trump, uses Twitter as a platform. So 2020, the president's Twitter account was hacked. And not only was the president hacked, but then again, we noticed like last year, LinkedIn has acknowledged the fact that over 700 million credentials of their users had been hacked and leaked online. And what's so crazy to me, Egal, not only, okay, we've hacked the president, not only do we have like huge liability issues, but what's so crazy about this hack is that this hack started with a LinkedIn engineer leveraging a personal web server at home, right? That actually housed their SSH key to get into LinkedIn. It's one SSH key on a personal web server, and bam, they're able to take over 700 million credentials from LinkedIn. It's bananas.
And one of the crazy things too is that if the president of the United States is reusing his password, we can, we can
But
assume.
here's what's also crazy about that. I'm not going to say crazy again, but let's talk about the fact that we know as far as credentials and passwords, people are creatures of habit. I don't care if it's the president of the United States, which obviously his security protocols are through the roof, right?
Yeah.
We know that people reuse passwords in a business or professional, capacity through their personal accounts. And then even though he's been notified that this password was hacked back in 2012, he doesn't even give 2 thoughts, and there were no security protocols in place to ensure that he doesn't use the same one on an active Twitter platform. Leader of the free world, Egal. Come on, people are people.
Yeah, and that's why we're trying to get rid of passwords here at Ketos.
And so Igal, talk to me a little bit about what your favorite hack is.
Yeah, sure. So mine doesn't end up with the president of the United States getting hacked, but I still think it's pretty cool. It's a little more on the nerdy side of things, but hey, I'm a developer, so that's what I like. And the reason I chose this one is not only because of the impact it had, but also by who it was created. Because usually when we think of hackers, we think of like a black hoodie and like working for a government or like this criminal masterminds that have been doing this for many years and all this thing. The crazy thing about the T-Mobile hack is that it was done by a 21-year-old person that was just browsing the internet, like scanning the internet, found a misconfigured firewall, got in, and realized he was inside T-Mobile. And from there, started kind of playing around and seeing,
Jackpot.
yeah, being like, wow, like did not expect this, and kind of like playing around, trying to brute force into some servers, and T-Mobile kind of relaxed a little bit, thinking of we have that firewall, and that's kind of a main problem. A lot of companies still think of the old ways of like, well, you have to be in the office, so we don't have to really have a strong identity. But nowadays, with zero trust, you have to have that strong identity barrier because networks are not as strong as anymore. Like people are working from home, and you have all these VPNs, you have all this stuff, so you have to rely on the identity side as well. So the hacker is able to brute force into a server that had 40 million records, including all the personal information of T-Mobile customers. And the worst part of it is T-Mobile actually found out of this breach because he was trying to sell it in the dark web and make some money. So it wasn't detections. There was no audits. There was no nothing. It was all just because someone told them like, hey, like seems your data is being sold online, and there's a screenshot showing of the attacker SSH into your servers. So it's a
That's crazy.
great story of showing the perfect storm of a misconfigured thing that got you into the network, got you to brute force, and created a huge liability for the company and for the customers as well. As a customer, you're now worried that your data is out there. So with that, I'm going to pass it to you, Danielle, and so you can guide us through kind of like the themes that we have seen, the problems we have seen across the industry.
I have a couple questions about this T-Mobile before you move us
Sure.
on. So what year did this T-Mobile hack happen? I know mine was a little bit dated, 2012, but still impacts being seen today. When
This
did
one
this happen?
was last year, so summer 2021. So
It
still
kind of
very
blows my
fresh.
mind that, again, we're looking at a large enterprise like T-Mobile that is technology forward, sells technology,
Yeah.
and they don't have preventative measures or monitoring measures in place to realize that they have a severe hack on their hands until somebody leaks it on the dark web and they're getting it third hand.
Yeah. I mean, it's not their fault. The digital acceleration has kicked up a lot. Like maybe 2 years ago, before COVID, they were used to like their engineers being in the office, and you didn't have that problem because you were in the office network and you were able to do that. But now with COVID and everybody working from home, and you have to adapt and you have to strengthen that identity perimeter to get you protected, get that auditing, get all that stuff up to the zero trust requirements.
Got it. No, thanks for clarifying on those items.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the problems surrounding SSH key management. We know SSH identity management is decentralized, and this is across the board. We know that an average server can contain as much as 200 keys, and 90% of those keys are not active or in use. And additional issues that we see with this trend is that SSH key management and security is left entirely in the hands of the engineering teams. These folks are focused on executing on their work for the day, getting access to those endpoints, and actually delivering product. They are not focused on security of how they access those environments, right?
Yeah.
So, Eagle, talk to us a little bit about how enterprises have like started to try to manage the problem.
Yeah. So the first problem the first way of managing it is talking about the first point that you made. It's decentralized. So we have to centralize it, not only because it's more secure and you have your security team provisioning the accounts and everything, just how you do with AD or anything. Also because it costs money. It costs money to have it decentralized, have your team like have to email someone to get that access to a server. You can save up to 30% by centralizing everything. So obviously, as an industry, the first kind of like solution to it is, okay, we have a decentralized password problem. Let's centralize them all in one vault. So the first one is shared key vault. So basically, you have kind of like a shared password manager. You save your passwords there, and everybody kind of accesses them and it gives you access to the server. The problem with this is, yeah, you solve the problem of decentralization. Now all the passwords are in one place. There's less keys to manage because it's one key for everybody type of thing. But that's also a con because you have one key for everybody. So you don't know who did what. You don't know who's the one that got compromised. It's hard to rotate the keys because someone has to go in and know where all the servers where this key is being used and rotate it. So it becomes kind of like one master key that it gives you access to everything, and there is no kind of like isolation of like this key is only used for this. It just becomes kind of easy. And as you mentioned, the engineers are there to make amazing products and have amazing SLAs. They don't have in the back of their mind like, we have to protect this, we have to do this. So that's shared key vaults.
So I'm hearing a couple of pretty glaring issues here. Number one, we know that breaches happen. We know that breaches are super expensive, like an average of $4 million per breach. Can you imagine being in the position that we're looking at shared credentials and there is zero audit log? Like, I get the fact that they're centralizing it, but now we're losing all visibility into where the leak started, right?
Yeah, and that's where our second kind of step comes in, and that's SSH account management systems. And these are kind of like a little more advanced systems. So what they do basically is you have this centralized system that will issue credentials for every new session. So let's say you have to log in, it'll go log into the machine, create a credential for you and tell you like, hey, you can use this password for the next 3 hours, log in, do your thing. And here you have all that visibility. So you know, okay, Danielle was the one that downloaded all the information, and you have automatic deprovisioning. So as soon as it's done, you're out of the system. You have audit in. So it solves all those problems. The problem with this is you have a gut account. So you have either an agent or kind of like an admin password that the central management system uses to issue those credentials. And as we saw with SolarWinds, having an agent is sometimes not the best thing because you might have it running and you have your security running and you say, well, this is a code signed, trusted from X company that we trust, and it's a process we trust. Yeah, we see it talking externally and like we say creating credentials, but that's fine. That's what it's supposed to do. What you don't know is that it's doing it for other things.
Well, I think that might be the world's biggest understatement if you're going to drop SolarWinds and then say maybe having agents with God accounts that are trusted empirically or implicitly might not be the best idea. I think you're hitting the nail on the head. We're talking like hundreds of billions of dollars they're estimating the SolarWinds hack. And we don't even know. We're not going to know for years. Hundreds of billions of dollars. That's bananas to me.
Yeah. So obviously, we have another step. And this one is one that a lot of companies are using. Facebook, Lyft, Netflix, all of them have white papers saying, hey, we use SSH certificates to authenticate, but they're not an identity company. So they just release a white paper and say people should kind of figure it out. The pros is you get the same just-in-time access. You get user-specific authentication. You get automatic provisioning. You get access auditing. The only difference is this one is native to Linux. So you don't need an agent. It can run from like a small IoT device to your large server. All you have to do is still open SSH that comes to with all Linux machines. Like, hey, trust this certificate authority. Any certificate that comes from this certificate authority, check that it has access to your machine and let it through. So there is no longer that agent that is creating and deleting accounts, is that certificate authority. The cons for this is you have another certificate authority. And as we have learned with PKI, they're very hard to manage. And this one is even especially hard because it's not regular X509 certificates. These are SSH certificates, which are a whole new level of complexity. But if you use a tool or something else to create and manage those certificates and automate this, it is the gold standard of it. But as always, I have to disclose, like, we might be a little biased here because we do offer a tool that has SSH certificates and offer this amazing experience.
I love that. I just kind of want to hone in a little bit on SSH certificates. So you're telling us like tons of large enterprises that have that development, force that are able to invest in these people that are cryptographic geniuses, right? Can implement their own systems. They're not going to bring it to market, right? But
Yeah.
this kind of leaves SSH certificates and an automated system or provisioning system out of the reach of, let's say, the mid-sized enterprise still.
Yeah,
Every company can't afford to reinvent the wheel here.
And that's where we come in. We, as I said at the beginning, we try to make those tools available for everybody, and we make it in a way that like it's actually easier. Our whole point is, I mean, engineers know how to add that password into that server, so we have to make it easier to use a tool, a secure tool that actually protects you, than it is to go around it. And that's where we created Easy SSH that will take care of everything. All the users knows is we're logging in with my AAD credential and I magically have access to the server. They don't know that you're creating an SSH certificate. And honestly, they don't care. The engineer is there to get their job done. If the server is down, they don't care that they have to go and get an SSH certificate. They just know that they have to get in as soon as possible.
Gotcha. So again, I would be a little derelict in my duties in business development if I didn't kind of force you to push forward the Ketos product. Can you just take a minute and walk me through Easy SSH and talk to me about what it does and how it does it?
Sure. The only thing is like a quick warning. This demo is kind of boring, but that's good. It means that the tool
That's what
doesn't
we're
get in the
going
way.
for, y'all. We're not looking to take a 12-step process and make it more complex. We want to like pare this down, make it lean and mean.
Yeah, so you can see here, this is our UI tool. We also have command line tools if you want to automate it and do everything with scripts, just how I like doing it. But in this case, you have your tool here, shows you the endpoints you recently connected to. So I don't have to remember the IP address. I don't have to remember any of that stuff. And all I have to do is click connect to endpoints. What it's happening in the backend, it's actually getting those certificates and connecting me. And as you can see, it took me longer to explain what was happening for it to actually happen. So now I have a new certificate. I'm able to log in and I'm able to get my job done. And as you saw, it did it for 2 accounts at the same time. So you can do it as many accounts as you want, and it just works.
And this again is backed up to a policy, that can be pushed out through AD. So it's kind of set it and forget it, correct?
Yeah,
So
so
we add a person to a group or a policy, and then bam, here are their endpoints that they have access to. These are, this is the time frame that they have access to the machines, and then we automatically deprovision, correct?
Yeah, so the certificate expires and it automatically no longer has access. Each time it's a new key. So you forget about all those PCI requirements of key rotation or everything because each time it's a new key. So there is no that stale key. There is no old cryptographic standards. You're always with the latest keys. You're always with the latest security. And you have just-in-time access and automatic provisioning. And obviously everything gets audited. It's a one-click export. We actually connect to SIEMs. So if you have a SIEM, we'll push the events there and you can have great detections of like, if there's any abnormalities or anything. We have great examples in our documentation that will help you detect any abnormality before it's too late and it's already in the dark market.
Got it. I appreciate it. I know sales is not your shtick, so thanks for going along with that with me.
Yeah.
I think, are we ready to kind of open it up?
Yeah, let's just open it up for questions.
All right. So I have a question surrounding the 30% efficiency gain or savings that you were talking about. Can you
Yeah.
dig a little bit more into that number?
Yeah, so this is a study conducted by Gartner that realized that automating identity provisioning can save the company a lot of money. And this is an engineering cost, customer support cost, because when you're doing it all manually, there's like more than an hour lost between engineering time of adding that key and getting access and just waiting. So by automating that, Gartner actually came up with that number and also came up with a saving of a company with 10,000 engineers will save up to 3 million the first 3 years of automating their identity provisioning. So it is just not only better for security, it's also better for your budget.
Sounds like it's pretty much win-win.
Yeah.
Um, and there was one thing I kind of wanted to ask you about is, I talked a little bit about keys that are non-active on servers, and we know that there could be on average 200 keys on a server, and 90% of those are not in use. Like, what's the significance of that data?
Yeah, so there are just keys waiting to be accessed. It might be passwords, it might be SSH keys. And the thing is, as I mentioned before, you were in kind of like that closed data center, which, you added that engineer had access, that engineer left the company, and you didn't go back and delete it because you don't know specifically which keys, whose, and you don't want to kick someone out when something goes out and no one has access. That could be a problem. So we kind of like became complacent of, we'll just leave the keys. Like either way, they don't have access because networking and everything. So we'll just kind of leave them and they keep growing. And the problem is not only nowadays with firewalls and everything being kind of more porous and letting more connections through, it's also of deprecated stuff. So now we don't want passwords. And even some SSH keys, we have come up with RSA 1K that it's too easy to break. So now we require more. So if you have one of those old keys, you're no longer compliant and you would have to go through every single server. And we're talking thousands of servers in a company to just go through and try to find any of those keys that are no longer compliant.
That just sounds so painful to me, just like
Yeah.
that whole task at hand. I hope that we've demonstrated that there is an easier way, a better way, a cheaper and more secure way. If anyone has interest in talking about it further, we're here for you at Ketos. We are the identity experts, and we are happy to kind of talk you through it, talk you through best practices, and help you achieve your security goals. Igal, any closing remarks before we end it for the day?
Yeah, I just want to kind of remark what you just said. Like, we're here to help. We just don't want to, as you said, I don't really like selling. So if you just want to talk security, we have a bunch of security people that love talking about security and the best way to secure it, from our Cloud Watcher, that is a free open source tool, to our code signing tool. We offer a lot of free things that we want people to kind of just secure their network. And we will talk to you about all our tools and make sure that you have the easiest route to be passwordless and be the most secure.
So you're basically saying they're not alone in this journey. Everybody's headed in the same direction. We're happy to kind of share our expertise, and I'm happy to try to sell it to them, Igal. You don't have to. That's my job.
Yeah, we got everything in this team. So we'll just contact us and it'll be great.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, and we look forward to our next event. We look
Yeah.
forward to hearing from you in the interim. Take
Yeah,
care.
thank you for joining us. Bye.